Coming up on episode 103 of the Behind the Back podcast, Ben and I debut our overreaction segment, week one overreactions, what stuck out to us the most from this week one slate, which was an awesome week of football, guys. And then we talk about the San Francisco 49ers going into New Orleans after a win against Seattle, but there's some news about Brock Purdy. So stay tuned. We break down that matchup. Ben and I give our scores for that. And then we pivot on over to Philadelphia. I get Ben's take on Spitgate and Jalen Carter now that he has been approved and ready to go for week two. So he gives his take, and then we break down this Super Bowl rematch and who we think is going to come out on top. With that being said, y'all, let's get it. All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Back podcast. We are your hosts. I am Marcos Conan Negron. And beside me here as always, maybe not in person, but beside me here as always is Ben, the Jet. Rets, Ben, how you feeling, my brother? Couldn't stop by today, huh?
Dude, I'm heartbroken. I'm not in the studio today. I'm congested. I feel like garbage. I didn't want to get you sick, whether you get sick or not. So
Totally fair.
I'm taking it easy. I'm here at home with, a blank wall behind me, none of my flags or anything, but forever faithful. So we're balling.
That's right. So hopefully you get better soon. Obviously, it's a bummer not having you here today, but we're going to, go back to our roots just like we were a month ago. So, it's nice to be back here, and we got a lot of juicy stuff to talk about, like we mentioned in the intro, y'all. So again, if this is your first time on the Behind the Back podcast, welcome. We appreciate all the love and support that you guys have been giving us, and we're excited as football season's finally been kicking up into gear. We're probably another month away from NBA talk too. So it's that time of year, guys. Things are going to be ramping up here. So we're talking about week two. But before we talk about week two, we want to debut a new segment this year that we're going to kind of be doing as we go along here. It's going to be overreactions. And there's no better week for more unpredictable overreactions than week one. So, people's whole, teams' whole seasons could be falling right in front of their face. Like, oh no, there's no way we're going to recover. And other teams are like, we're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Let's go. So I thought a great overreaction to start would be to start in the NFC North. And my overreaction is going to be that I may have been wrong about the order in which I had my teams in the NFC North. First off, I had the Lions, and you know what? That could still totally happen, having the Lions at the number one seed, because again, it's the first game, right? But the NFC North played each other this weekend. The Packers played the Lions, and the Vikings played the Bears on Monday night. And it was a great test to see this division that might be potentially, if not the best division in the NFL this year, kind of go at each other week one. And I thought this was a great chance. So I want to start with the Packers-Lions because I was shocked, not so much on like the Packers being good and performing well and playing well. It was great to see. Micah looked good. He played less than half the snaps, but still made an impact, got a sack in there. But the Lions, man, they looked out of sorts. And I was so surprised because I thought, like, okay, they have enough talent. They have all these offensive weapons. Like, they should be able to put up more of a fight than what they did. And I think, now the commentary after the game is like, they're missing Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. So that's my overreaction to start. What do you think, when we talk about like that game in particular, was there anything that you noticed from Micah's debut or anything from the Lions that you noticed?
Yeah, I mean, the Packers, to me, was the bigger thing because we even talked about when Micah Parsons got over to Green Bay. We were like, it might get them one or two more wins, but it doesn't so much make them a contender, right? And we kind of, without talking about it, we kind of highlighted this week one matchup between them and the Lions. And this was an eye opener. I'm not gonna lie. Like I didn't really believe in this Packers team. And while you could say it's an overreaction to say I've completely flipped, that's fine because to be honest with you, bro, the Packers look damn good. And that's a team like I could absolutely see if keeps going the way it is, and Jordan Love continues to ball because early on he didn't look that great, but
Mhm.
he settled in and he found a rhythm. And if he continues to play at that level, that still remains true. What we talked about in our predictions, how a lot of it rides on him. If he remains what we saw in week one, this team's going to be just fine, and they will absolutely find themselves deep in the playoffs.
I think the biggest question for the Packers is going to be health, and obviously the receivers look good right now, but Christian Watson's obviously still out. Um, Matthew Golden got his first look. Romeo Dobbs, like they still have the weapons there,
Yeah.
and so long as those guys stay healthy, great. But I am still concerned about the long term health of this team moving forward. But they looked the part. They looked like they took a step um, this particular game, especially against a team that kind of had their number over the past couple of years. In the Lions, the Packers didn't win any games against the division last year, so to go 1-0 at home to start was a perfect way to go. Um, yeah, Jordan Love had a couple interceptable balls there for sure. And that those are going to be the things, right? Like you had mentioned, we ride this year for the Packers rides or dies with Jordan Love and how well he does. So definitely, I was impressed with the Packers, and this Thursday is going to be a very, very fun matchup between them and the Commanders today because we're recording on Wednesday, so it'll come out tomorrow on Thursday. So we got a fun Thursday night matchup with the Commies, the Commanders, and that's going to be this is going to be a great measuring stick game. Probably probably one of the best games of the weekend happening on Thursday night. So you know, we'll get a great test to see how both of these teams stack up against each other. But for the Packers specifically, I think they have a really good chance.
So, all right, let me ask you a question then.
Hmm.
If tomorrow the Commanders come out and just blow the Packers out of the water,
Hmm.
will you attribute it to a rest disadvantage? But you can't really say that because the Commanders played last Sunday too. Would this kind of flip the script for us? Because for me, it depends on how they lose the game. But if I see
Two Debo
if I
runs for.
see, I mean, yeah, if I see the Commanders come out and really assert their dominance and set the tone, and I don't see the Packers really answer to it, I would again kind of flip back and you can call it an overreaction again. I would feel like the same thing applies what we were saying preseason.
Yeah, I think it's hard too, right? Because this is the fun part about overreacting is like it is still week one and it's still like week two tomorrow, right? And it's Thursday night. Thursday night games are never pretty, and they're not that, you know, it's not the best football. So it's going to be a real test for both of those teams to see. I think whoever wins, everyone's going to feel a lot better about. I do think there's an element that I don't know who America wants more because I do think both of these teams are. I think they're on the up and up, right? They're the young upstart teams that have good young quarterbacks, and teams are vibing on them, and they both think everyone thinks they're contenders this year. So I don't think that the winner of this game will be like everyone will be like, oh, they're contenders now, like they're definitely the ones to beat. Um, Actually, that would be the case if the Eagles lose on Sunday, but we'll get to that later. But I I don't know, man. I don't know if that would really swing it one way for another if it's a close game because both of these teams are supposedly really good. So if it's like a 24-21 game or it's a 28-25-24 game, like I won't say that whoever won was definitely going to be better. I guess yeah, like you said, it sucks like trying to think about this cuz it's all about context and
Yeah.
how these games go. But I don't know for me. It would have to if someone blows the other team out, then it'll probably be more of like, "Oh, okay, maybe this team is ready and locked in." Um but I also don't, fast starts don't necessarily mean, Super Bowls either. So that's also another thing.
My hot take is that Washington comes out and beats the crap out of this Green Bay team. And I look,
Ooh.
I might be wrong. I might very well be wrong, and it might be a close game, and Washington still wins, or Washington might be the one who gets blown out. I think this is gonna be a fun matchup, but that's just kind of my hot take going into to week two.
No, totally fair. I love it. Love the prediction early. So this is good. So let me ask you about the Lions then, on the Lions side of things. Did
Yeah.
that game worry you at all? Like, or do you think the Lions have earned the benefit of the doubt with new coordinators and things like that, to kind of have maybe this first month to figure it out. But at the same time, if they go 0-4, do you believe in them still? So it's like, what's the urgency in your opinion for Detroit?
Yeah. I'm not crazy urgent. Their schedule does scare me though. And so it's like you got to get these wins as much as you can, and you got to find this quick. So two things can be true. It can be true that, they with their new coordinators and the head coach, and Dan Campbell having to adjust to that and the team having to adjust to that, like it's going to take a little bit of a growing period. But it can also be true that you don't have time for that. You gotta find a rhythm pretty quick here if you want to stay in the running, because the NFC is wide open right now. And even your division, the NFC North, that in and of itself is going to be enough of a battle. So, to me, I'm not gonna personally overreact just yet. But if by week 4 we're still seeing a lot of what we saw in week 1, I'm gonna start to be concerned.
Okay, no, that's totally fair, and I would agree that like, and especially because they paid Jared Goff last year, so it's like you're paying him top dollar. He needs to be able to pull through. If I think there was a stat from First Things First that they pulled out that Matt Stafford, when he hasn't had Sean McVay or Ben Johnson calling his plays, he's like it hasn't been that many games. That's another point of it, is that he hasn't had a bad play caller that often. I think he's only
Yeah.
like 3-9 without them, but without them he hasn't had success. So it is an interesting little wrinkle for Goff. So I want to shift our attention to the two other quarterbacks in the NFC North and that game that happened on Monday night, which was crazy, and I think a lot of people did not expect. I think after J.J. McCarthy threw that pick 6 in the second half, everyone, like myself, I texted you. I literally texted you after. I was like, Vikings are going to be a 4-win team. And and then
What did I say?
and then you were going to bed, bro. Like you were sick, you weren't feeling good. You're like, it's fine, like whatever. And then J.J. McCarthy explodes in the fourth quarter, and I'm like, hey, I might have been completely wrong on the Vikings and JJ McCarthy. And,
He's a dog.
he's a dog. And, he might be the white Jalen Hurts with the way he's quoting stuff out here. I forget exactly
Right?
what the quote was, but he had a pretty cheesy quote when they asked him. So I thought it was mad funny. But you had the Vikings as a 10-7 team, and I was like, what is with you, like with this team? And you believed in McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell. And I think that's the conversation from this game. I think it's less about McCarthy and Caleb Williams. And I know you're about to have a nice little talk about Caleb Williams here. But I think this game was a complete, like, if you want to describe how the difference between these two franchises, the Bears and the Vikings, and how this level of success both teams have had over the past few years, the Vikings being an awesome regular season team, Kevin O'Connell being an amazing coach. I think with what he's been able to do with Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, and now J.J. McCarthy basically as a rookie, I think the level of respect for Kevin O'Connell has gone up a lot. I think, the conversations are like, oh man, he might be top 5, top 3, just with like what he's been able to do. So my overreaction, comes from the NFC North, and that I might have just been wrong on the Packers and the Vikings, and they might be a lot better than I had anticipated. And maybe the Bears and the Lions are more of a work in progress this year. Maybe they're the ones that switch. So from the Bears Vikings game, what really stood out to you in terms of what would make this feel like an overreaction in a way?
So, I mean, that quote you were talking about with JJ McCarthy, here's his quote. It is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Love that.
He took that straight from Jalen Hurts, bro. I'm convinced he practiced it in front of a mirror. Like, you can't tell me otherwise.
He had a year off, so.
It's true, yeah. He must have rode a golf cart with him at some point or something. I don't know. So look, what I saw from JJ after he threw that pick 6, I was about to go to bed. You texted me right after. You didn't mention this. I did go to bed shortly after, but I also said he needs time. Give him time. Once he gets some time, he's gonna develop. He'll be fine. JJ McCarthy threw the pick 6. After that, solid as a quarterback can be after you make a mistake like that. And he wasn't there was every reason for him to be completely rattled at that point. So for him to respond that way as a young quarterback, essentially in his rookie year, he really didn't get a rookie season, right? After tearing his meniscus. So for him to do that in essentially game 1 of his NFL, career was monster. I thought that was massive for him. I think it's an awesome moment for the Vikings and something they're absolutely going to build on. Hang on. I was cooking and Siri just interrupted me. So it's something that they get to build on, right? Looking at the other side of it, when this game first started, bro, when the Bears went down the field with ease and put up that first touchdown, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a long night for the Vikings," because one of the biggest things going into it was their defense was going to be able to keep them in a lot of games and be able to, make things competitive, and hopefully their offense comes along quickly with JJ and they'll be able to start stacking wins. When you see a drive like that, you're like, "Oh man, this defense might be cooked." Defense settled in pretty quickly, and the Bears completely lost their rhythm. And I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. This is my overreaction to this game now. The Bears took the wrong quarterback in 2024. All right, you had every chance, and I get, he might have been the best looking prospect coming out of college, but you had Jaden Daniels there. You had Drake May there, who's all you could question is, not necessarily on that level, but could be. Obviously the JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, right? So there's all these different quarterbacks that they could have picked from. Caleb Williams has now 2 years, of experience going, and you're seeing a lot of the same miscues that he's had since he started. Like, I don't see the growth. I don't like the deep ball at the end of the game where he completely overthrew DJ Moore. It's like you're just like Jimmy Garoppolo to me in my book at that point. Like, that throw should have been easy to make at that point. DJ was gone. That's a practice training camp ground style throw, and you completely missed it. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I think the Bears made a monumental mistake by drafting Caleb Williams. I don't believe in Caleb Williams, and until he proves me wrong, like, I'm going to die on that hill.
So you had like you just mentioned when McCarthy threw that pick six, and I texted you about it, and you were like, "Oh, he needs time." I think I'm a little confused with like the way this conversation's going with Caleb, because this is his second season. Last year, and again, I don't think the conversation around this Bears team was that the management from top to bottom was a disaster, from the coaching staff, and the fact that Caleb had to assume more of a mature leadership role, and it took away a lot. And they weren't developing him the way that Ben Johnson is now. I think when you look at this game, yes, I understand that he missed opportunities and left plays on the field, but there were also plays where you saw like, holy crap, there's only a handful of dudes that can make those kind of throws. And I didn't realize how athletic he was. He was able to escape the pocket with relative ease.
His speed is crazy.
And he had that throw early in the game where he was rolling to the right, he's going to the sideline, and he just darts it over to Roma Dunze, right? So he has that. But then later in the game, he has that moment where he's running and scrambling and he steps out of bounds. Like, he has those boneheaded moments. But there was also a portion in this game where he went 10 for 10, right? Like, to start this game. So I think that the potential is still totally there with Caleb Williams. And I think the problem is now for him, he's also facing the level of adversity where it's still a new coach, a new play caller. Ben Johnson is a first-time head coach trying to establish his identity and his rhythm. And I think there was a point in the game where Caleb went 10 for 10, and Ben Johnson started feeling his play calling a little bit. And he's like, let's change it up a little bit. Let's try and get some of these shots in. And he went away from what was working. And I think that's going to be something that, yes, Caleb may not be hitting those accurate throws right now, but I think it's, yes, the Bears probably drafted the wrong guy, but I don't think that if they drafted Jaden Daniels that they would be in the NFC Championship game last year. If they had drafted him last year with that coaching staff and everything around him, I don't think he would have led him to the NFC Championship. And that's not a knock on Daniels. He went into a much better situation in Washington where a team it worked out better for him. So I just think that Caleb Williams, like, I think there needs to be time for him too. So that's how I feel.
No, you actually just cracked this code for me, because I fully agree with you. I think if Jaden ended up in the Bears, they wouldn't have ended up, I don't even think, in the playoffs necessarily. And I think that just cracked it for me. I don't think this is so much a Caleb problem so much as it is a Bears problem. Like, their development of young players is so trash that, like, it's so tough for anyone to look at this team, look at a young prospect, and believe that they're ever going to be anything more than just a solid role player or good player, right? So you have this guy in Caleb Williams who shows all the different reasons why he can be a star in this league, right? He can be your franchise level quarterback, somebody you end up paying $60 million to. I don't think they'll ever tap that potential with the Bears. And it's up to Ben Johnson. I mean, it's
Mhm.
100% up to Ben Johnson at this point. He's the only one who can save, this is crazy to say, but save his career. Because in a lot of ways, that's what's going to happen is if you're able to, in these next 2 years, develop him and turn him into the player that you expect him to be when you drafted him, then you're saving his career because you're paying him a whole bunch of money. He's considered a franchise quarterback. Otherwise, you ended up like a Justin Fields, where you never get a good opportunity. You're then traded to another team who you don't get another good opportunity with because they didn't have a quarterback, because they never had the developmental, aspect to be able to build you up. And you're just, journeyman after journeyman. And I look, what I like what I'm seeing from Justin Fields on a side note right now. Like Fields in week one looked phenomenal. I
Great
loved
job.
it. It
Hmm.
was a fun game to watch. But his story to me is something that I think you need to keep an eye on when you're looking at Caleb Williams, because there could be a similar career arc if Ben Johnson isn't able to get the most out of Caleb.
Absolutely. And yeah, it'll that all comes down to Ben Johnson, but I think now, obviously the expectations are high because it's like Ben Johnson has this high profile offense and they have good players on the roster. It's not a bad team. That's a good offense. It's better than a lot of the offenses that are out there, and their defense is solid too. They also had a couple questionable calls and things that happened in that game too that could have, had it gone their way, probably would have been enough to get the job done. But it doesn't excuse the fact that they had the game in their hands and they stalled out and, let it go. And those are the developing moments that this team is still going to go through. And we saw, in but in fairness, and I said this too, we s- it felt like, and I think everyone almost felt this way who watched that game, is I saw more development in JJ McCarthy in the fourth quarter than I've seen from Caleb Williams throughout the first year
Yeah,
and game now. So there's
true.
that's a testament to, I think, like you said, the Bears as a franchise has not been great for quite some time now. Um, and it sucks too because they were celebrating the '85 Bears on Monday night too, and the defense was looking great after that pick six, and then the night just fell apart. So it's always on one of these celebration nights where weird stuff like that happens.
Right.
Um, but no, I think Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings, I think they've earned officially the benefit of the doubt. Now, Kevin O'Connell has instilled the faith and the confidence in this team, and now they won in a situation like that with a rookie quarterback. And now that's what he said after the game, that it was like that happened, and we got to see it happen as a team. So now we know it can happen. Now we know that we can win. So that's always, I think, the Vikings. I probably have more turned around on them than I have in any other team in this division. I think that they might have the best chance of finishing second in the division. So
Yeah, I love Kevin O'Connell. I think he's one of the better coaches in the league. I think for me it completely solidified that he's a top five coach. I play with my top five list a lot,
it's
and
fluid.
and
It's
at some
fluid.
point it is, and at some point we'll get a feeler on each other's top five lists. But for me, I think at this point I have to pretty consistently put him up there because he keeps his teams competitive all the time, no matter who's on the field. They went through a period last year where they didn't have Justin Jefferson, and they were still competitive. And they've had that similar things happen before. So the switch from JJ early on in the season, before the season even started, over to Sam Darnold, and you're able to get that team rolling, like there's so many reasons to believe Kevin is one of the better coaches in the league by far. So I think the Vikings is the bigger story in this game than it is, the Bears.
For sure.
But the Bears are kind of doing the Bears things right now, so it's hard to not avoid that.
The Bears, and that's for sure. So, on the topic of coaches, last overreaction before we talk about our teams. I don't know if it's an overreaction if you're dead right about something, but
Go.
the Dolphins, bro, Mike McDaniel's, the Dolphins.
Bring
They
my boy home.
they made Danny Dimes look like prime freaking Peyton
Yeah.
Manning over there, bro. I had to sit on this take and watch Russ throw for 65 yards in this game and watch Danny Dimes, and you're like, and I was like, oh, Daniel Jones is not better than Russ, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at how bad this went. Maybe that's another overreaction too. But Mike McDaniel, bro, and the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Now Miami, they're investigating freaking Tyreek Hill again for domestic violence stuff. They weren't protecting Tua that well. He didn't play that great. Their defense was awful. And Mike McDaniel after the game was like, "Oh, at least it can't get worse. We're one day closer to death." So I'm like, I don't know, I don't know what the heck is going on over there, dude. And I felt the vibes. I saw this team starting to fall apart, and all the comments made by former players. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I might if this keeps up, he's gone by like week 5. I put it at week 8, but I mean, if this keeps up and they keep getting blasted like this, I am worried. And I don't see a world where, like, yes, they play in the AFC, so they'll have a chance against, like, the Jets and the Patriots. Like, they'll have a fighting
Sure.
chance, maybe. But, like, they looked like the least impressive team in the NFL in week 1.
Dude, I saw this freaking crazy, mind-blowing stat that Tyreek Hill hadn't seen a 30-yard reception in like a couple years. It's been like 2 seasons since he had a 30 yards through the air catch. And
Oh,
that
where,
to
like,
me
he
is
didn't make, like, yards after the catch for it?
right.
Ah.
That to me is so wild. So, yeah, man, it's so rare and weird to say that like a week 1 or a week 2 game would feel like a must win for any team or any coach or player or whatever. Week 2 is absolutely a must win game for this Dolphins team if they want, number 1, any chance for good vibes this season, but number 2, if they want Mike McDaniels as their coach moving forward.
They do.
And it doesn't feel like it, right? Because you listen, even I don't think Mike wants to be there anymore.
Thank you. That's
Like
what I'm
listen,
saying.
you listen to the answers he's given the media, bro. He's so checked out at this point. And I'm just like, bring my boy home. Like, he wants to come back to the Niners. I would take him in a heartbeat.
I mean, I guess.
Let Kyle do his normal head coaching crap, or just bring Mike back and let him be a consultant, like an offensive consultant. That would be cool. It's fine. Yeah, I'm sure he would love that more than he like sitting on the field in Florida baking and losing games by 40. So I don't know, man. I agree. I think, and I wanted to believe in this Dolphins team probably because of Mike more than anything. And I expected them to come out and at least pick up this first game, but dude, that was a joke. And as far as the Danny Dimes thing is concerned, I do think New York was the bigger issue than Danny Dimes ever was. I think Danny is absolutely a good quarterback. I think he's fully capable of having games like this, but it was never going to happen again on New York because that franchise is just incompetent and broken.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. If Daniel continues to have this level of success, then the question's like, wait, Daniel Jones starts on this team and does really well. Saquon goes to this team, does really well. Like, where are we the problem? Like, what's going on? Was it Brian Dable? And that's the question too. And okay, so last quick little tiny overreaction question. Jackson Dart. I said
start him right now. Now.
There's the overreaction, right? I said at the beginning, I was like, even if they do it, they'll probably go to Jameis first, and they still might. They still might, but like, at that point, get the young kid out there. Screw it. If there's gonna be, if you guys are gonna be bad, and like, I know you don't want to put him in harm's way, but like, let's see what he can do. Let's see what he can do with Brian Dable and his system, and see if he can make something happen.
Yeah, I loved what I saw from him in the preseason. I don't think he's going to come out and play better than anybody else that they'll put out there. But at the same time, I don't think he's going to play that much worse. It's not like Russ is going to get you this many more wins than a Jackson Dart would. If Russ is out there for all 17 games, guess what? You're still winning like 5 or 6 games. Like, you're not that good of a team.
Yeah.
So it's like, what benefit do you really have running an old-ass head in Russ versus getting some excitement in the building about a Jackson Dart and selling some more jerseys? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's enough of overreactions for week 1. Let us know. I know there's so many things we could have overreacted to, but we thought those are the ones that really stood out to us. So now let's pivot on to San Francisco. 1-0 San Francisco 49ers going from Seattle to the road again to New Orleans Saints. So you kind of are going on, cross country a little bit there, and then you're going to
Yeah.
be going back home. So, this game has I would say a lot less intrigue than it did going into Sunday. And
How dare you?
and I want you to explain why I would be saying such hurtful words like this. Why would this game be having less intrigue than it normally would, Ben?
Would it be because my Pookie Bear Brock Purdy is not going to be playing in this game?
I mean, I'm a little bit, yeah, that's probably why.
Yeah. So let's kick it off right away with talking about the worst news of the week. And that had everything to do with the thing we've talked about the most since starting this podcast, 49ers injuries. So on Sunday, biggest injuries that happened, George Kittle went down pretty early after finding an early groove. I talked about it in my post game. He had a hamstring injury. He's going to be sidelined 4 to 5 weeks. Puts him on a similar timeline to Brandon Ayuk, which is kind of cool in the aspect of we'll get him back at the same time, but not cool in the fact that we see a whole bunch of good teams in the first 5 weeks of the season. So that's cool, Jawan Jennings had a shoulder injury. He was listed now as day-to-day. He had an MRI and a CT scan. Both came back clean. So he is not necessarily expected, but he's looking to be playing on Sunday. I think at this point I would expect him to be playing, especially considering all the other injuries. You need everybody you can out there. And he's kind of a guy that you can take that risk with because he wants to be out there, just like, most of them do. So the big one, Brock Purdy. It was reported Monday by Kyle Shanahan that Brock Purdy sustained a shoulder injury to his left shoulder, so his non-throwing shoulder, and a toe injury. The toe injury was and is the bigger issue than the shoulder is and ever will be. And the toe injury is now something I learned today that could be keeping, or rather yesterday, Wednesday, that could be keeping Brock sidelined for multiple weeks. So this is not a good news for a team that needs to find a groove early. You see your 3 division rivals. Obviously, you got past Seattle, but you see the 2 more division rivals in the first 5 weeks. You need to find a groove early. You're already missing guys, and now your franchise quarterback, who you paid a whole bunch of money to in the offseason, is going to be sidelined and, missing out on valuable reps and going to have to shake off rust when he comes back. So this sucks. And this is a lot of the reason why this isn't a very favorable in terms of a fun matchup to watch this Sunday. So let me kind of get into this here. And I talked about the injuries. Now, as far as the Saints are concerned, it's pretty safe to say one of, if not the worst team in the NFL right now. And it has 100% to do with the roster construction. And just the situation in and of itself. Now, Spencer Rattler was named the starting quarterback right before the season was started. And in week 1, I'm not going to lie to you, he played a good game. I liked what I saw from Spencer. I think that he played like a veteran quarterback. He didn't make a lot of mistakes. He didn't put the ball in harm's way too many times. But, at the very end, he failed to lead his team down the field to get a game-winning, or a game-tying or winning touchdown. So he's still kind of showing his signs of, needing development and needing to, be in the right system. But they still have Alvin Kamara at halfback running back. He's shifty and controlled. You have Jawan Johnson, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and Brandon Cooks at wide receiver. Those are all speedsters. Demario Davis and Pete Werner at linebacker. That's a solid 1-2 punch. And Justin Reed at safety. Now you got the number 9 pick in Kelvin Banks at left tackle. So there's guys on this team that can make a difference. And especially now with a 49ers team who's banged up, this is a team who is going to be running out with Daddy Mac, Big Daddy Mac, as their quarterback, Mac Jones. So Mac Jones is a serviceable quarterback, and we saw some play from him in the preseason. Not the greatest. He threw a pick, but he also responded to that pick pretty well. And he went down the field. I believe it was either for a field goal or a touchdown. I think it was a touchdown. So I'm not the most confident, but where I do have confidence is that Christian McCaffrey was used and abused in week 1. and nothing has really been reported of him being sustaining any injuries or anything. So I expect him to be used and abused that much more, if not more, in week 2, because that's going to be a guy we need to lean on. So before I move on here and get some of the keys to winning and so on, I want to get your opinion on how what you're thinking of this whole situation in San Francisco with the injuries. I mean, I feel like we talk about this every week.
Yeah, I think the timing of it obviously sucks because Purdy is coming off of a game where it was yes up and down, but they took care of business, and that was a game last year that the Niners would have lost, and I think that there is a lot of good things, and obviously there's a bit of news that we'll talk about here in a little bit um, regarding the Niners, but I think that overall there were signs of life there, and obviously the defense is going to. I think for the next few weeks, even once Brock comes back, the Niners are going to need to rely on this defense. And fortunately, they showed last week that they could. So I think that, especially against the Saints team, I think they're going to be able to muddy up the picture. I think they're going to be able to make this a fight. Obviously, the offense now, and I know you guys brought in a new receiver, and I don't know what the status is on Jordan Watkins is now, and I'm sure he's going to be coming back here soon.
He'll
So
be
it's
back
like,
soon.
so and then you got Demarcus Robinson coming after week 3. So it's like,
Correct.
so you got all of a sudden, if the Niners can just hang on, right? If the Niners can get this win specifically, I think this is almost a must win in the sense of must win to give yourself insurance. I think this is if the Niners can go 2-0 and allow some of these guys to come back and the Niners can get stronger and stronger and stronger as the year goes on, I think that's only going to make this team better. But for now, having you're relying on the Mac attack this week, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting experience, especially since he did get hurt in preseason and missed some time.
Yep.
Didn't get all the reps that he could. So this is going to be an interesting one. I agree with you. That they're probably going to use and abuse McCaffrey. 31 touches last game. Definitely, listen, they needed every single one of those
Oh
31
yeah.
touches, even if it wasn't, productive every snap. Um,
You
and
know what CMC? What I'm sorry to
no,
interrupt
no,
you,
you're good.
but real quickly, you know what CMC being back last week really showed me was how much he was missed last year. Not just in like his run game presence, but the checkdowns that Brock has been
Yeah.
I guess judged on, right? Like he was able to check that ball down to CMC so many times, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, I agreed. And that's an element that's really important to this Niners offense, and that's a great way to sustain drives and keep and finish drives. So I think that, it is a bummer with Kittle and Purdy out. Like those are two of the guys that you guys are going to need to make it deep into the season. But fortunately for you guys, I think the timing of it, yes, even if you miss one of these divisional games, you guys did get Seattle on the road. That's huge. So I think that is a great place to start. It probably, if he's missing 2 weeks, then Purdy's definitely missing the home opener, which sucks. So, we'll talk about that when we get there. But this week, I think they're okay. It's going to be a much closer game now than it would have been otherwise I know
Yeah,
the line went from 6.5 to 4.5.
for
But I think 4.5 is still a solid line on the road. So Vegas still believes that the Niners are going to win comfortably, have a good chance of, they're definitely pretty heavy favorites here.
Yeah, well, and going back to week 1 real quick, Brock Purdy, so this is per Kevin Kruger on X. He says Brock Purdy was pressured on 57.9% of his dropbacks in the 49ers week 1 win over the Seahawks. That's the highest pressure rate he's faced in a single game in his career. When
Yikes.
under pressure, Purdy completed 13 of 20 attempts for 126 yards, a touchdown, and those 2 interceptions while taking 1 sack. So you can look at that 2 ways. You can, look at that and say, well, Brock played pretty well considering all the pressure that he saw. He went down and won the game for the 49ers. You can also look at that and say, wow, that O-line is complete dog water. And it is. That's the reality. I mean, Trent Williams in and of itself giving up 6 pressures 100%
Yeah.
is the reason why I love Trent. I still think Trent is one of the better offensive linemen, but when you don't have a single rep in the offseason and a single rep in preseason or training camp or anything, you sit out on all this, like, you're slow when you start. And I've seen that now so many times with Trent. I'm not going to sit here and say bench Trent Williams because the next guy behind him is better. No, that's not the case because the 49ers didn't build that offensive line, and that was a concern that we talked about all offseason. They don't have the depth to do that. So this is a reality of, not building that O line that you have to face. And unfortunately, while I can say that Brock threw those 2 picks and it's, 100% to do because of the pressure, well, the second pick had nothing to do with pressure because he had a clean pocket, time to throw, and he threw into triple coverage. I don't know what he saw there. So, there's a whole lot of issues going on that they need to work through. And I think with the Brock thing, he even talks about this, and this is a well-known thing about Brock. When guys are missing, when guys are out, injured, sidelined, whatever, Brock feels as though he needs to put the team on his back. And look, I love that. I think that's a leadership mentality. But brother, you don't have to throw into triple coverage that much. And you can check it down more often than not. That is when it's okay to check it down, is when, you have one weapon out there. Your one weapon is the guy who is your check down option. Give him 40 and a half touches. It's fine. It's all good. He's fine.
Yeah, at that point.
So, Brock had to go and win the game because our previous kicker now, Jake Moody, was not able to knock down his field goals. So it was, look, I had it in the post game. I can't take credit for it, but when I recorded the post game, I did this whole thing on Jake, and I was like, I don't expect him to be a part of this, or 49ers team next week. It could be as early as next week. It could be throughout the season, but at this point, like, it's just gotten too far. Jake Moody's no longer, as of Monday, he has been waived by the 49ers. They opened up the market. They were looking around, and they signed Eddie Pinheiro. Now, a little bit on comparison real quick here. So let's just compare Jake and Eddie and some of their stats between the 20 and 50 yards, okay? So 20 to 29 yards, Jake Moody was 16 of 17 in his career. Pretty good. Eddie is 25 of 25. Perfect. 30 and 39 yards, Jake was 14 of 16. Eddie is 42 of 45. Okay, really good. 40 to 49 yards, Jake Moody was 10 of 17. Eddie is 32 of 41. So even that, you're kind of like, okay, but missing 9 on 41 attempts? I'll take that. 50 plus yards, this is the big one. Jake Moody was 6 for 12 on 50 plus. Eddie is 11 of 14 on 50 plus. So as for the career longs, they're basically the same. Jake's was 57, Eddie's was 56. Eddie, I just learned right before recording, Eddie Pinheiro has the 4th highest field goal percentage in NFL history. And he's only I think 0.8% back from Justin Tucker, who's number 1. Mm-hmm. So this was a good signing. And look, it's long overdue. I wish Jake Moody nothing but the best. I defended him more than I probably should have. The thing was, at this point, it was a mental thing. And it was a mental hurdle that he just couldn't get over. Doesn't mean that he can't come back and be a kicker, a really good kicker for some other team. But it just wasn't going to happen in Santa Clara because it's just too much had happened at that point. And I think you rush him back from that injury. Before that, he was perfect, literally perfect from the field. You rush him back from that ankle sprain when your special teams unit couldn't learn how to tackle and you left it to your kicker to tackle. Breaks his freaking ankle. You rush him back from that. And yeah, of course he's in a struggle. So there's a whole lot of reasons why Jake Moody had so many issues here in Santa Clara. I'm not going to sit here and dog on Jake Moody. I really do wish the best for him. But I can also say I'm really happy that the 49ers moved on from Jake Moody because it was time. And I like this Eddie pickup. I think he's going to be really solid.
Absolutely. On Jake Moody, again, and same thing with you, wish him all the best. I'm sure he's a great guy. And kicking is such a mental game that once you lose that confidence, it's all over for you. And I just feel bad for him. Not to mention the Niners, fudged it up. I don't think there's ever really been much of a history in the NFL where kickers that get drafted end up panning out with the teams that they end up being drafted by. We watched the young Wei Koo guy who's playing for Atlanta who got drafted by the Chargers. Yeah. There's a couple other guys, Chad Ryland, I know who was the Arizona guy. Yep. It's just that added pressure sucks. And I feel bad for Jake because he had it. I think after that injury, he went 12 of 23. And you just can't expect to win in the NFL if 66% of your team is doing their part. And when when the Niners offense gets down the field, how many points have been left on the board that, or how many times do you go down that field hoping you don't get to 4th and like 5, knowing that there's going to be a chance that you're not going to score on that possession when most of the time you should be. So I think this, the Niners got better, obviously, by letting go of Jake Moody and bringing in at least an established kicker who is reliable enough to where if Brock doesn't feel like if he's crossing the 50 that he has to get it somewhere extremely close if he doesn't finish. So and that changes Kyle Shanahan's play calling a lot. I think it's going to be an instant change in how the Niners offense attacks, and I think that
I agree.
it's gonna be very interesting to see how that works out for them. I'm happy that they made this move. This was definitely needed. I understand some of the celebration behind it because you want your team to win. At this point, it has nothing to do with Jake anymore. It's more about like the Niners should have pulled this Band-Aid off a long time ago if they really wanted to. They were really serious about winning games. It was just funny how they let this go so long. And I know it's a matter of, oh, we don't want to be wrong on this pick, but you could have. I don't know. Yeah. So it was just
No, it's
bad process for this one, but happy for Eddie Dinero Pinero to pull up to the bank here and hopefully make some kicks for y'all.
Yeah, 100%. And just one last little thing. Tabor Pepper went on Locked On 49ers, and Tabor Pepper was the guy he was a long snapper for the 49ers. He was the guy who got in the fight with Deebo Samuel,
That's
defended
right.
Jake Moody last year. And he talked about, the aspect of special teams kicking field goals and extra points and how there's, 3 phases and really 4 where it's the snapper, it's the holder, and it's the kicker. And then, obviously there's the line to hold. How many times have we seen in the last 2 years, including on Sunday, the 49ers have a blocked field goal? I'm sorry, but that's not on Jake Moody, and that's not on whoever's in a kick. So that still applies as well. It's like Eddie could be 100% field goal. You could bring in Justin Tucker, who's one of the best all time ever. How good is he going to be if your line isn't holding right, or your snapper isn't doing his job right? So there's so many jobs that come into this, but it's always going to be the face of whoever puts their boot on that ball, and that's the reality of kicking in the NFL. That's the pressure of it, and it's part of the job. So I love the addition. I'm looking forward to it, and I agree. I think it does change their playbook. So let me talk about what I want to see from the Niners, and then the keys for their victories, so we can kick it over to some Eagles talk. So one of the keys or one of the things I wanted to see from the Niners was I wanted to see Purdy be more controlled. That's not going to happen because it's a long shot, quote Kyle Shanahan, for Purdy to be playing on Sunday. So instead, I'm going to say something similar. I want Mac Jones to be controlled. I want him to play controlled. I want him to find his groove. I want him to settle in. I don't want him to have to take too many shots early. I want him to be able to have some checkdowns, something to kind of get his rhythm, get his swagger, so he can get out there and do that gritty that we know he can. But I'm looking at just a comfortable game from him. I don't want him to feel rattled. I want him to feel protected, which is going to be a tough ask behind that O-line, but hopefully there's a game plan that enables him to get the ball out of his hands quickly. So that's one of them. The next one is I want to see the same results out of that defensive line that I saw last week. That defensive line and the burst that we saw, from every aspect of that line was refreshing. It was something we haven't really seen since, you can say it was D'Amico. Last time you saw something similar was D'Amico Ryans. Before that, it's Robert Saleh. So this style of defensive line 100% had Rob Saleh written all over it. It was exciting to watch. It was a breath of fresh air. And that's, going to lead me into my first key to the victory, and that's rattle Spencer Rattler. Make him feel uncomfortable. Spencer threw 46 times, completing 27 of those for 214 yards and no touchdowns. So he's going to be throwing the ball a lot, because that's kind of their game plan. They're going to utilize Alvin in the run game. They're going to utilize their backs a bit, but they want to throw the football. They have better wide receivers than they do backs, and their game plan is 100% revolving around the air. So making him feel rattled and having to shift their playbook to some check downs or shift things to just get them feeling a little out of rhythm and get Spencer out of rhythm is going to be my number one key. My number two, limit the freaking penalties, you guys. Both teams were heavily penalized in week one. The Saints saw 13 penalties for 89 yards, 8 of which were pre-snap infractions. You just can't have that. That's offensive alignments, that's motion issues. The Niners saw 9 penalties for 61 yards. Kellen Moore is still dialing his thing in over in New Orleans, and as far as the 49ers are concerned, it's a matter of, not no mental lapses. We saw Deommodore Lenoir, him commit a couple of just, boneheaded little after play things because he hates the Seahawks. I get it, you're cool, but like we got to lock in because that's 15 yards, bro. So I want this team to be a little more locked in. I want to see a little more a little less mental fatigue when it comes to, making these mistakes. So last thing is win that turnover battle. Obviously, Brock throwing 2 interceptions in week 1 versus the Seahawks was crappy. Spencer had no turnovers and looked fairly poised. Like I said, he failed to lead his team down the stretch for a game-winning or game-tying touchdown. But what the 49ers did do really well was they forced fumbles last week, and that's something that, whether you're going to pick off Rattler or not, this defensive line was able to poke the ball out twice last week against the Seahawks team that really shouldn't be struggling with that, especially the guys who fumbled that ball. So I'm looking forward, and I'm expecting this 49ers defense to be hungry and be motivated. I think the emphasis this week in that locker room is going to be this game is going to be won on the defensive end. And so from that aspect, I'm expecting, and my biggest key is for this defense to just really make your presence known, make this Saints team feel rattled, make them feel like you can't keep up regardless of the injuries that we have.
Yeah, and it's going to be on the road. The Saints are going to be, I think they're going to feel okay after how week 1 went, and they're going to feel a little bit more confident, especially knowing that it's going to be Mac Jones on the other side, and maybe they're going to try to switch up something and maybe force it a little bit, try to rattle Mac Jones, right? So like you said, if he can stay controlled and just, limit turnovers, limit penalties, play clean, you guys, and especially on the road, and I think that's part of it too. But if the Niners can clean things up, that is something I'm worried about. How is the communication, the cadence going to go on the line? With him and Mac Jones. Obviously, we're hearing about this Brock Purdy stuff now, and knowing that he's most likely out, so they will have the week of practice, which is nice. So at least it's not like right beforehand, and they're trying to figure this out on the fly. So I do think Shanahan's going to have a good plan. And I definitely I think we're going to see a heavy dose of McCaffrey and Ryan Robinson this week just to take some of that pressure off of Mac. And I think, honestly, I still think that's sustainable. I think the Niners will be able to do just enough, control the tempo, control the time, win on defense, and you guys will be just fine. You'll be able to walk out of there with a W.
Yeah, 100%. And, I talked about it in the post game. If you guys haven't checked that out, go to our YouTube page and give it a listen. Marcos is out there as well for the Eagles. Really good listens. But, in mine, I talked about the youth and the young guys that we had on this team and how they came through in a big way in week 1. You got to have that in week 2 as well, because at this point you're getting so deep into your rosters with these old heads getting injured that, you need to see same production and even more production out of some of these young guys. So, whether that's a key or not, it's something that I would love to see a little bit more out of them this week.
Absolutely. All right. So what's your score prediction for this game?
I got 17-10 Niners. I don't think it's going to be high scoring, but I think the defense is going to do just enough for the 49ers to limit this Saints team to 10 points.
That's a great score. I would say 17-13. I think something will happen. It'll make it a little bit closer. But I definitely think the Niners have what it takes to win back-to-back games on the road. And I know there's some people out there will be excited to see if the Niners backup QB will be able to make some noise out here, and then that just starts a whole nother conversation. So, play well, Mac, but maybe not too well to start some stuff, okay? So let's just get that W and, go on next week. So I did have a question real quick, real quick on last week. How, when Brock threw that last ball to Tonjes, and it was up in the air,
Worst.
Tell me just real quick. I know it was happening in the postgame, but in that moment, what were you feeling?
That was sickening, bro. I was sitting here quietly with my girlfriend, and we were just watching the game, and we're disappointed at that point because 49ers weren't playing a great game, but they were moving the ball, and we're like, all right, you're still gonna have to go and win it on the other end, but get a touchdown here, and this spices it up. And Brock throws that ball. Like, first of all, I love the scramble drill. I was like, yeah, keep that play alive. But then at the very end, I'm like, just throw the ball away. Because worst case, you're tying this ball game up 13-13. Worst case. Because I trusted Jake to make that one. If he missed that one, I don't think he makes it the night. But I would trust him from that range. But Brock throws this ball. You can call it a 50-50. I've heard Niners fans, I've heard NFL media call it a 50-50 ball.
Mm-hmm.
That shit was not a 50-50 ball. That was 60-40 favoring Reek Woolen. Like,
Reek Woolen sold, bro. That was
he's
bad.
trash, dude.
That was
Like, I'm not
bad.
gonna lie to you. I had a good amount of respect for him as a player, for Tyreek Woolen as a player. He allowed the highest passer rating you can possibly allow at 138 through that entire game. He was garbage. Ricky Pearsall routed him up all day long. Like, that is Ricky Pearsall's son at this point. So the fact that Woolen didn't get that pick and Tonjes did, look, Tonjes made a great catch, and those were his 3 first catches of his NFL career. He hadn't had a catch in the NFL up until that day. And it was a clutch catch. I loved what I saw from it, and it was great. But like that throw, no, never again, Purdy, never again. That ain't even 50-50.
I love it. I know people were comparing it to the Joe Montana one, and I was like, to the Dwight
No,
Clark
that's
one, and
disrespectful.
I was like, Joe Montana was the one getting triple team, not Purdy. It was
Seriously.
funny. I thought it was funny, but yeah, no, okay, that's great. I wanted to get that. All right, so now with that behind us, we can put Week 1 behind us for San Francisco. Now let's go over to Philly, and like Ben said, we have both of our post game pods up. So if you'd like to go check them out, they are on our page. We really appreciate it. I want your take. Jalen Carter spitgate. What did you think? For those who don't know, those who might have missed this, missed the discussion on the Eagles played on last Thursday, and before a down of defense could even be played, before the first snap of the game after the opening kickoff, Jalen Carter decides it was a good idea to literally spit on Dak Prescott's chest, and this was again when we were watching it on TV. When we're watching it on TV, we didn't see both angles yet. After the lightning delay, they come back and they provided us an angle where Dak spit first.
2.5 hours later.
2.5 hours later, towards right, and again, the whole broadcast was like, that was the interesting part about it too. Was like the broadcast was just like, ripping Carter and thinking like, why would he just spit on a dude? And then you get the other angle after the fact. They did a good job talking about it after, but they spent the whole first half of the game kind of bringing that up. Which is fair. Carter did it to himself, right? So
Yeah.
I want your opinion, like, because I know what you texted me, and I know, I know how you feel about Jalen Carter, but just objectively that moment, because it's hard to picture. It's easy to say like, oh, Jalen Carter is definitely like one of the kind of guys who would do that, but it's just hard to picture anybody doing that, which was what made this so weird. So what was your spitgate take?
So anybody who knows me, you know me, like, I'm a hothead. I don't like losing. I'm competitive. I'm a trash talker. I'll get up in anybody's face who wants to do it right back to me. But this whole spitgate thing is wild to me. And I saw the Dak Prescott part of it, and I'm like, okay, I understand a little bit more why Jalen would do that. But the problem is, even if somebody spits in my direction, even if they spit on my shoe, I'm not spitting on another man's chest. Feel me? Like, that's not what a man does. Like, you take that shit on the field, you put that on your play. And Jalen is one of the best defensive players in the league. You're absolutely capable of making the rest of that game a living hell for Dak Prescott. So why would you throw your opportunity to do that away before you even get to play a freaking snap?
Yeah.
That to me is the part that pisses me off, because Jalen Carter is fully capable of being a top player in this league. But right now he's throwing that away with everything that he's doing. He's ruining his reputation in a lot of ways. And so that to me, I thought it was low. I thought it was childish. Like, I didn't mess with it.
No, absolutely. And listen, the discourse around Jalen Carter for the rest of his life is going to be the mistakes that he's made. And unfortunately, when you get into an accident and you kill somebody, that is a stain on your life and your reputation for the rest of your life. And That is something that anytime he acts childish. That is the first thing people would like to throw in his face or anybody else's face who supports Jalen Carter. And I think that you have to know better, dude. And I went off on the post game, so if you got to hear that rant, go ahead and check it out. But like, you have to be better. You're a top player in this league. The Eagles relied on you and are still going to rely on you. You are too good to be this immature when all offseason you were showing great signs of leadership and maturity. And I was coming in here saying like, oh, this guy he's been acting like a leader. He's putting the guys all together. Like even when he's not practicing, he's a part of the team. Like he's been doing all the right things. And then before a snap is even played, you made this insane decision out of emotions and immaturity. And it's inexcusable. Now, thank you for that. I appreciate your take. So now let's talk about it from the sense of week 2, because there was talks, and I brought it up on the post game too, of like, will he be suspended? And it turns out he was suspended for a game. And fortunately for the Eagles, because a lot of people, a lot of Chiefs fans want to say this is a conspiracy theory. And a lot of Eagles fans would have said the same thing had he had been suspended going into game 2, right? So,
yeah. So I think the NFL would have said the same thing that the Eagles would have said.
So because Jalen Carter, because this incident happened before he even played a down on defense, he technically didn't play at all in that game. So by the NFL, he served his 1-game suspension already. Will receive a fine of $57,000, which is nothing. But
it's a penny.
So now the president has been set for this incident. It is at least a 1-game suspension if you spit on another player. There you go. So that's what it's going to be. So the rule is if you spit on a player, just do it right before the game, and then if you just want to miss a game, just spit on a dude. You'll be fine, right? So
yeah, do it against like the trash team that you're going to beat anyway.
I want to rest this week. That's it. So then you're good. So now that that's cleared up, Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl rematch week 2. Jalen Carter will be there. And then when we talk about the injuries on the Eagles roster, there's a couple moves that were made. So Will Shipley, our running back 2, played the Cowboys game. He was looking really good. And then we didn't see him after the first quarter, and we're like, oh, okay, what happened? Turns out he has a fractured rib, so he's going to be out 6 to 12 weeks, which is kind of a bummer. In turn, the Eagles traded for Jaguars running back Tank Bigsby, brought him in for a 5th and a 6th round pick in 2026. And this wasn't just a Will Shipley move, because it definitely is, because the Eagles now needed a spot for their RB3. They'll probably let A.J. Dillon be the second running back because, Tank needs to learn the system. But Tank will also be operating in the kick returns. And they believe that he'll have value there. Bro can't catch the ball when he's, out of the backfield. So it makes me worried about, fielding kicks and stuff. So that's weird, but we'll see. We'll see what he brings to the table. But that was a move that happened. And the Eagles also brought in edge rusher Zadarius Smith, veteran, 11-year veteran, who played with the Browns and the Lions last year. And even though it was his 10th season last year, he put up 9 sacks. So it is not nothing. This is a good move for another veteran player by the Eagles. And this is coming off of a game where Azeez Ojulari did not play. And now that makes me wonder. I haven't heard anything about Azeez. So I really do wonder if there's something going on, or if he lost favor with Vic Fangio and they felt like they needed an extra body there. But Zadarius Smith, awesome addition to the lineup. That's great for that edge rusher rotation, which is good. So let's talk about this Eagles-Chiefs matchup. There's a lot, going on here in this game, but I want to start off from the Chiefs real quick and just say, and this is not meant to be a slight, because we're going to break this down in a second. I don't think the Chiefs are that good. And it's right now, this roster. Rashee Rice is suspended. Xavier Worthy ran into Kelsey, got hurt. Kelsey's old, and they're relying on Tyquan Thornton. Hollywood Brown had a great game, but that's because Mahomes threw to him every time, 16 times, in fact, against the Chargers. The Chiefs went to Brazil, lost to the Chargers, 28-21, I believe that was the score. So great win by the Chargers. That sets them up nicely. But the Chiefs, Mahomes had to do. I think when you watched that game, you saw Mahomes do things that you would normally only see him do in like the biggest of games. He was trying to pull out all this magic. Like he had the pass where he's falling and he still hits it. He has that one on the side where he chucks it 50 yards towards the end of Hollywood Brown. Like he's still making magic happen. And he trucked that one cornerback too, right? So he's doing these things that are like, I'm trying my best to carry this team right now. But the roster,
I'm trying my best.
with the O-line, he was
Yeah.
running around all game.
Yeah. It's bad.
And not to mention, now we got receivers hurt. So you're down wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. Your running game's not that great. Your O-line's still And your defense looked like they took a step back against the Chargers. They didn't have that same. They did well against the run, but Herbert cooked them, lighting them up.
Yeah.
So I think the Eagles really. The Eagles. This line went from, I believe it was 3 points to KC, to now it's 1.5 points favored for the Eagles on the road in Kansas City. Last time the Eagles played there in 2023, the Eagles won in Kansas City. And obviously, that was the game before the supernatural funk that happened, the collapse, right? That was kind of like, everything led up to that game. And then we played tougher and tougher and tougher teams. And then it just kind of crumbled for the Eagles, right? So now we're getting them in week 2. I think overall, this is a game where I expect the Eagles to win. And Elliot Shore-Parks, one of the Eagles beat reporters who works for 94 WIP, the local Philly radio station. I love listening to his podcast, the Go Birds podcast. For you Eagles fans, please go check it out. It's awesome. He had said, he had tweeted out that this week would be an acceptable loss. And I thought that was interesting because when I look at the next few weeks, we have the Chiefs, we have the Rams, we have the Broncos, and I know there's another team I'm missing in there. But we have tough games coming up. I would argue that this Chiefs game is the easiest of the next few games we're going to be having here. And again, this is because we're not getting the full version of the Chiefs. And I don't think Chiefs fans are tricking themselves into thinking, oh, we're totally better than the Eagles team as it stands right now. So I expect this game, because these two teams outside of the Super Bowl usually play each other really, really close. And I think there's a lot going on here where Mahomes, because he lost on Friday, I know this goes back to last year, but he lost the Super Bowl and he lost game 1. He's never lost 3 games in a row before in his career in the NFL, ever, which is crazy to say that a player that he hasn't done that. I think there was 3 other players who had such a streak where they had never lost 3 in a row. And I know Brady was on there. I forget who else was on there. There was a few other guys. But Mahomes is on like 138 game streak or like wins where he hasn't lost 3 in a row. So that's at stake for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think there's just a lot going against them. And I know that they're playing on the road, but I think if there's any team in the entire NFL who's not enveloped by the Chiefs' mystique, it's the Eagles. It's the team. This is the closest thing to a rivalry, a true rivalry and I mentioned this back in 2023 that it was kind of developing to this point, that these two teams have enough respect for each other where they feel like they're in the same place. And I think that the Chiefs don't scare the Eagles and the Eagles don't scare the Chiefs, but the Eagles have taken that step to being better than the Chiefs right now, as it stands. And in this week 2 matchup where the Chiefs are hurt and definitely going to be missing some key players, I don't see a world where the Chiefs end up pulling this one out. Because the Eagles, Jalen Hurts always plays his best, specifically against the Kansas City Chiefs. His best numbers of his career, like I forget exactly, I think it was like 320 total yards, 11 touchdowns, 3 turnovers, and like 100 passer rating versus the Chiefs specifically. Like he plays very, very well. And this is even going back to 2021 when he first played them. Jalen Hurts was the reason in 2021 that the Eagles were even close against the Chiefs, who were peaking then. And Jalen Hurts had like 350 plus yards. Like it was a crazy game. He always plays well against the Chiefs. I think there's just this element of like, this has been the team to beat, and I want to beat the crap out of them every time. So I do think that there's an element that I just think Jalen Hurts this is going to be a Jalen Hurts game. And I think that I think all teams. I think the approach this year for the Eagles, everyone's going to do the same thing. They're going to stack the box. We're going to try Saquon. They're going to say, no Saquon. Beat us with Jalen, and we're going to be like, okay, you're asked for it, so let's go for it. So the Chiefs have enough talent where they're still going to have a chance, but I think the Eagles kind of has this team's number. They know how to beat them. So I think there's going to be an element of that. And not to mention, Chiefs are coming from Brazil. I know they have a mini bye because they had the 9-day break. The Eagles have an extra day of rest, was in the States and aren't traveling that far. The Chiefs have to kind of recover a little bit. The Eagles mentioned it last year when they played the Falcons and lost in week 2, that like there was an element of like lag from coming back from Brazil. It felt like a whole season of its own. So that's going to be really interesting to see. Can the Eagles just come out right away and pop them? It's a 125 game. It's the primetime game in the middle of the day in Fox.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, what are your early, what are your early thoughts going into this matchup in terms of like what you think about the Eagles or the Chiefs going into this?
So I'm going to let you know that, but I did a quick Google search when you said what quarterbacks, that haven't lost 3 consecutive games. And you nailed it with Tom Brady. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is another. Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, and who else but Joe Montana?
There we go.
So those are the quarterbacks who have never lost three consecutive games. But no, bro, I fully agree. Like, this Chiefs team, and this is tough because, like, y'all beat them. Y'all overcame the Chiefs hump. So, like, I can sit here and say that the Chiefs are trash and look like crap. But the reality is, until my team can beat them, I really can't say that, because the biggest reality is, I've said this about Chiefs teams before, about Chiefs teams that had a good defense, lacked receivers, or vice versa, had a good offense, lacked defense, and they still come out and win these games that they really shouldn't be winning. And so there's a lot of like factors that play into that. But watching week 1 against the Chargers, and look, Chargers looked good.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Chargers will be a good team this year. I don't think they're going to be as good as how the Chiefs made them look. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
that's, to me, where I'm kind of sitting going into this week 2 matchup. Like the Eagles against the Cowboys, I'm not going to lie to you, Dak Prescott was wheeling and dealing. But even still, the Cowboys, like, you knew at no point the Cowboys really didn't stand a chance. And Dak can sit back in the pocket all day long and throw, but if CeeDee's going to miss his catches 4 times, it's like, you're never going to win that game.
Yeah.
With Patrick Mahomes, the only thing I'm concerned about is if their receivers follow through in any way, shape, or form. And that's kind of the thing to watch, because your CB2 hole is a hole right now. And it's a hole that is, I do want to say gaping wide, because CD could have gone for like 200 yards if he just caught a few of those balls. So I'm concerned with that, especially a quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. I know you're his biggest fan, so it's definitely something that you're looking forward to, I'm sure. But reality is, this Eagles team and this defense especially, it's massive that you have Jalen Carter back. He's going to provide a ton of pressure. I don't think this Chiefs O-line is going to be able to withstand the kind of interior defensive presence that this Eagles team is going to be, shooting down there at that pocket. I think the biggest chance that the Chiefs have is the Mahomes magic, the Mahomes magic that everybody talks about, that everybody knows. Like, he rolls out of the pocket, he does some crazy crap and ends up completing something to Kelsey down the field, or whoever down the field. That's the only way, because they're not going to beat you on the ground. They're just not, like,
That's just not their style.
It's not their style, right? So it comes down to how crazy of a game Patrick Mahomes is going to have, and I just don't really see it happening. I mean, and then the other side of it is the Eagles offensively are going to be able to compete and keep up with that magic if the Chiefs put on the same level of play they did defensively in week 1. So it's like, I almost feel like the Eagles would be able to put up more points than Mahomes would if it was just offense versus defense, and reality is kind of how it is. So, yeah, I feel good about this Eagles win. I disagree. I don't think that this is an acceptable loss in any way, shape, or form, because I'm looking at your schedule after you mentioned it. Like, Y'all play the Rams after that. You play the Bucks after that. That's your
There it
kryptonite.
is.
You play the Broncos, then you see New York, and then Minnesota, then New York, and then Green Bay. So it's there's a stack of some solid teams in there that right now I would argue are better than the Chiefs are. So I think you
Right.
need this one.
Absolutely. And so when we look at the keys, right, it really is as simple as, for the offense, uh, it's going to be as simple as this week, guys. Target AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. Okay. And how I know this is going to be a big game for AJ Brown, because whenever this is a conversation, Sirianni always knows this stuff. Sirianni's aware. He's on top of this. For all you fantasy football people out there, for all you bettors out there who are like, man, AJ Brown and the Eagles screwed me week 1. Pick AJ Brown this week. AJ Brown has never had less than one target on his time in the Eagles. This was the first time. Previous 2 times, I'm just using 2 examples here. Week 5 in 2024 versus the Jags. He only had his 2 lowest target rates last year were four targets, and this happened in 2 games. Week 5 versus the Jags, that was the Saquon, reverse hurdle game. 4 targets, he had 2 catches, 36 yards. What did he do the next week versus Dallas? He had 7 targets, 5 catches for 109 yards. Cool, great. He bounced back really nice. Week 10, that was the Carolina game, the close Carolina game. 4 catches, 43 yards. AJ Brown afterwards. What do we need to work on? Passing. Next week versus Pittsburgh. This is the y'all wanted to see this game. 11 targets, 110 yards. I just think that everyone loves to freak out when AJ Brown and these Eagles don't get the ball, because on any other regular team that features a lot of star players, like let's say Bills and Stephon Diggs back in the day, they would be freaking out about this and making a really big public scene. Well, listen, AJ is a receiver. He's allowed to kind of say these things, but one thing people don't want to give him credit for is that he busts his ass every single play. He is out there doing the run blocking assignments. He's doing the dirty work. Yeah, it's a cardio day, sure, but it got the win. And he made the catch when it mattered the most at the very end of the game that allowed the Eagles to get that last first down. I just think that AJ Brown and the Eagles do a very good job against this Kansas City Chiefs team. AJ Brown does a really good job, and Devontae Smith, of getting open against this team. So I think that this offense, the key is just going to be, I believe they're going to slow down Saquon. Jalen Hurts, is the key for this one is to keep doing what you're doing, dude. Find AJ Brown, find Devontae, keep playing efficiently, don't turn the ball over. And on offense, another key is going to be to limit. Well, the offense wasn't the issue, so I guess as a team in general, a key would be to lower penalties as well. The part of the reason the Cowboys were even in that game last week was because of the penalties the Eagles gave them. And it was more than just Jalen Carter spitting. It was taunting, DPIs, like stuff that we can control. And I think that it's one of those things that if that comes down even just a nice, even if we only have like 4 penalties, it's going to feel significantly different against this Chiefs team. We don't want to make mistakes on the road against this Chiefs team. I don't care how damaged and broken they are. They're still a team that deserves the respect that they can win in almost any situation. They did almost pull out that Chargers game, had a few things gone their way. So I think that, stay clean, operate well through the pass, which I believe Jalen's going to have a big game through the air. And on the defensive side, now that we have Zadarius Smith and Jalen Carter, let's see what this D-line can do. Let's see what kind of pressure we can generate on Mahomes. Can we do what we did in the Super Bowl? Or do we have to switch things up in order to adjust for our cornerback too? That's going to be a key. I believe Adoree Jackson will still be getting reps. I don't want to see it. I want to see some more Jacorian Bennett. Maybe we see a little bit more of a combo of the two. But that is going to be a question: is how will the Chiefs just say, Hollywood, find Adoree, we're going to attack Adoree, kind of like how they did with CD. So that is going to be a matchup to look out for, and hopefully something Fangio can plan for. So that's my keys would just be use AJ Brown and Devontae, attack Patty Mahomes, get him under pressure, and hopefully lock down that CB2 position and make a plan to make it less of an issue than it was last week. And we'll be just fine. We are the better team. Like, as it stands right now, we are the better team. It would be very disappointing if we lose this game against a broken and battered Chiefs teams right now. Listen, like, the Chiefs are a good team, but they're not the Chiefs of the past couple of years, and they're going to be a team that's going to be better. as the year goes on, when guys come back, when Rashee Rice comes back, when Xavier Worthy gets healthy, they'll be back. They'll definitely have more spunk to them. But right now, they're not the same team. So we got to take advantage while they're down. If we lose this game, it could set the precedent for the next few games. And it would be nice to, we don't have back-to-back home games. We don't have back-to-back road games. It would just be, nice to keep stacking wins. And Jalen Hurts is on a 15-game win streak in games that he starts and finishes. So let's see if we can extend that too.
So I'm gonna kind of do like a over under with you real quick before we get your final score. I'm looking at the Super Bowl score, the Super Bowl box score. God, you guys put the whooping on him. I love that. So Saquon had 25 carries for 57 yards. So I'm going to set the over-under on Saquon Barkley in this game at 60 on the ground yards. What do you think?
I'm going to say over, and I'm only saying this because I think that even if he's off to a slow start, I believe we're going to generate a lead in this game, in which case we will start running the ball more. And Saquon,
Agreed.
even if it's not the most efficient day, should get 60. I think he got exactly 60 or right around there against the Cowboys last week. And they had to throw at the end there too, but he made some good plays with catching the ball too. Had a nice one-hander. So I'm definitely anticipating the Eagles even ran a couple good screens for the first time in like 5 years. Like I had never seen that before. It was crazy. I was like, whoa, that's what a good screen looks like. So let's see, they had one with Saquon where he picked up a nice first down. Let's see if he can get involved there too. But yeah, 60, I would say over this time.
Yeah, I'm taking the over on it as well. I think the big game is going to come from AJ for the exact reason you do. But I'm going to say that, I mean, hot take, not really a hot take because of Saquon, but I think he scratches 100 in this game. I'm going to say 100 yards is what he gets on the ground, but
Love it.
We'll see. But I do have the Eagles winning this one. I think it's going to be a blowout, bro. I really do. Like, I don't think this game's going to be that close. So I'm going to say 28-17.
Okay, that's not a blowout. That's close. That's 10.
It's a blowout against Patrick Mahomes. Are you kidding me?
I mean, hey,
I beat him by 18 last time.
28-17. I'm going to go a little further, and I'm going to say I like 17 for the Chiefs. I don't think their offense is going to do. I don't think they're going to do as much. I think the Eagles' offense is going to bounce because they looked really good until that lightning break in where they had to take an hour break after making rest. Like both offenses sucked, but before then they were both grooving. It was a fun game until that point. So I think the Eagles' offense, and again the Eagles. I didn't mention this in the postgame. The Eagles' offense scored on their first possession. That was something that we had a huge issue doing last year. That was one of the talking points with like, these guys can't score in the first quarter. What's going on? Like, and to be able to score on 3 straight possessions right away in this game, I think that the offense is very controlled. Jalen looks calm. I think it's going to be 31-17 Philly. On the road, it's going to be tough. And if they do win this way, I think it's going to shut up a lot of because people are just waiting for the Eagles to lose. And if they lose to this version of the Chiefs, the Eagles are definitely going to they're going to be like, how good are they really? Or are the Chiefs back? Oh, we can't count out the Chiefs. So it's going to be interesting, but I think 31-17 is going to be how this matchup goes. And we'll establish ourselves in this rivalry as, Jalen Hurts will take the lead and the Eagles will take the lead, and that'll be fun to have. So
I can't wait if it does happen. I can't wait for the conversations to spark next week. Is the dynasty over?
Yep.
Is the reign over for the Chiefs? Because that's absolutely a conversation that will need to be had if that happens.
Listen, other weird nuggets. Chiefs have never gone 0-2 in the Patrick Mahomes era to start a season. So that's one thing to think about. The Eagles, the past 2 times they've won the Super Bowl, they did go 1-1. So they've never won a Super Bowl going 2-0. So maybe this is the acceptable loss argument talking, but at the same time, it's like, superstition. Hey, we go 1-1. There's probably a chance we go to the Super Bowl. So we'll see. But no,
so
yeah.
We've got the morning slate. Y'all have got the early afternoon slate. This is going to be a fun weekend of football.
Heck yeah. Oh, I know. And last week did not disappoint. It was a lot of great football, and hopefully, this next week continues. A lot of good matchups, guys. So this is a good episode. I know, about an hour and a half here, so we appreciate you guys sticking around with us here. Did you have any final thoughts, Benny, before we head out here? I know you're sick and you powered through today. I'm proud of you for doing so. Thank you.
I'm sick of these injuries more than anything, honestly. But
Yeah.
let's go, Mac Daddy. Go get us a W.
That's right. Bang, bang, baby. So, with that being said, guys, this was episode 103 of the Behind the Back podcast. You can hit us up at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com with any of your questions and comments, please. We love hearing from you guys. For all you guys watching on video, all of our descriptions to our social medias are up above. For all you audio listeners out there, links to descriptions are down below. Please give us a like, subscribe, rate, review, follow the show. Any comments you want for week 2 for our overreactions? What do you guys think? Do you guys agree with our overreactions? Do you guys think that, the Niners fans, how worried about you guys with Brock missing time? Eagles fans, how confident are you going against Kansas City? So, we got a lot of fun stuff here going on. Hopefully our teams can pull through in week 2, and we're going to have plenty of overreactions for next week. So, with that being said, I am Marcos Conagron. Beside me here, as always, is
Ben the Sick Reds.
all right, y'all. We love y'all. We'll talk to you next week.
Peace.